Hello and welcome back to HRD Live, where I'm now joined by Candice Cross from InterContinental Hotels Group. Thank you for joining me, Candice.
Thank you, welcome.
So what have you been sharing with the audiences today at the summit?
Well, my session was around mid-level leaders and what we really need to try and uplift their performance, because they are a group of people who sit in the middle of our organisations, leading the vast majority of the people in them, and yet they are being asked to both deliver our strategy but actually execute it as well. And so often they find themselves in quite stressful positions where they're drowning in email, drowning in meetings, trying to meet with all of their people because their teams are quite large, and actually that creates quite a lot of anxiety and stress, and when we're under those kind of conditions we don't make the best decisions.
So how do you remedy that then, I suppose? Because there's a certain aspect to this which is like business are kind of set in that structure, right? This is how we deliver that kind of strategy, but how do you remedy that? How do you move past it?
Well, I think there's a number of things that are happening in the industry at the moment, and just being here, you notice there's a lot of suppliers focusing on well-being. And I suppose what I'm talking about and where we're focused on IHG is where do we want to be on that spectrum of well-being at the nth degree, or if you don't perform, you're out. And actually, where on that spectrum does well-being and performance connect?
Right.
And so at IHG, we're really looking at what does well-being mean in the context of performing in role. And that was what I was talking about today.
So do you think that well-being, its current position in business, isn't strong enough? Do you think that business leaders aren't placing enough of a focus on it, generally speaking?
I think it's quite similar to the inclusion agenda in that it seems a little bit like it's on the HR's job.
Right.
It's the responsibility of that group over there, and whether it's CSR or it's HR or where does it sit. And really what we're talking about is how do we bring that into the workplace so that it's sustaining your performance in the context of the business performance. So how do we help you operate at your best? So an example is, are you a night owl or a lark?
Right, okay. So personally, I'm in bed at like 9 o'clock at night.
Okay, so
you're like 7 a.m.
So you're a lark. And we work with leaders and said, how do you structure your day to do your best work if you are at your best in the morning?
Right.
As opposed to somebody who's a night owl who comes alive at night. You might reorganise your work and reorganise the way you engage with your team based on that knowledge of your circadian rhythm. Where you perform at your best. So it's for us, we're trying to connect this. How do we look after you and link work and your performance at work to your individual needs and where you perform your best?
So it needs to be somewhat more personalised and focused on the individual to a certain extent.
I think so.
Right. So I mean, so people watching this, HR leaders, business leaders who are inspired by that message and really want to get it started, but haven't the faintest idea how. What might be a top tip from you to kind of get that sort of change going now in their organisations? How can they maybe get things off the ground?
I think there's probably a couple of things. One of them is engage your leaders in the role of well-being in increased performance. So we know that people who have better health and well-being are more engaged. More engagement leads to business results and business outcomes. And I think we need to make that link far more than it just being about me looking after you as an individual. So that's number one, engage your leaders in that message. Number two is then thinking about the 4 key hot points. So nutrition and sleep and mental well-being, and how these things interconnect with each other in work. So for example, thinking about educating your people in the role of carbohydrates just before you go into a high performance meeting, for example.
I completely
and what that
understand
can actually do to you. It's not to say that you can't have it. No, it's not the role of organisations to tell you what you can and can't eat. But educate on the impact that has on you, or dehydration on the impact of your ability for cognitive capability.
Right.
So it's more of an education of well-being in the context of your work, is my advice.
Fantastic. Candice, thank you so much for joining us in HRD Live. I really appreciate it.
You're
It's an
welcome.
inspiring message as well. I need to eat more pasta like, later in the day and less just before a meeting, I think. But thanks, guys, for watching. We'll be back very soon.